You're tuned into the Rockford News Network. This is part 2 of episode 2 of Rockford Advocate Case Reports, recorded February 1st, 2017. With me, I have Jim Haggerty. I'm Jeff Orduno, and we're going to have a follow-up conversation to the Joseph Evans letter that Jim released via Rockford Advocate yesterday on the Stephen Avery case. Jim, how's it been? We did a quick video yesterday. You released that letter. What's happened since then?
Well, my phone has stopped ringing for the most part because reporters now can just look at the letter instead of trying to pry it out of me. But there's a lot of traction on both sides of the Stephen Avery argument. Did he do it? Did he not do it? Social media is blowing up. Of course, a lot of conspiracy theorists just don't want to accept the fact that he could have killed this girl. And the mountain of evidence that's against Stephen Avery, exists. There's nothing we can do about it. I don't know if any of it was planted, but Avery is a convicted murderer, and he's sitting in prison for killing Teresa Hallbach. But this letter, it's driving some controversy. It's just driving up some buzz.
It is, and after I look at this case more and just more of what's being said about it and more of the facts, the one thing I notice, and you refer to people as conspiracy theorists, I will say this. This is kind of the logical outcropping. The way this has gone is the logical outcome of what the sheriff's department did years ago.
Right.
I mean, by what they did to this guy. So now, and you look at their involvement when they weren't supposed to have any involvement in this, it just makes the whole thing smell bad.
Sure.
I mean, whether he did it or not, it creates doubt. It creates some sort of there should be some sort of circumspection about this.
Sure.
So that's what I'll say about the thing in the aggregate. Obviously, I will probably never know in my lifetime what really happened, but for now, we've got the letter to talk about. We've had some, I think, pretty interesting responses or commentary on it via Reddit.
Yeah, I was accused of being a idiot, a terrible journalist. I should be fired. I should shoot myself, I think somebody said. And, right down to being accused of creating the letter myself. But Kathleen Zellner, acknowledges the fact that this Joseph Evans exists. And I have a sneaking suspicion, like I said yesterday, I think she has had a copy of this letter or has been aware of this letter because it's been around since August of 2016. And I am not the first person who has had it. I am one of 2 people that I know of who have received this letter. Other people have it. I don't know exactly who that is, but I have a feeling Zellner is one of those people. But getting back to Reddit and some of the social media.
Let's tee this up. I mean, Zellner's remarks on Reddit, I thought they were fun. I think it was actually via a tweet.
Right. She loves that Twitter. She's the female Donald Trump of the Twitter sphere, I'll tell you that.
I don't know whether she'd appreciate that comparison.
She's very good at what she does. Very esteemed.
She's fantastic. Great.
This
is a well-written tweet, and somebody brought it into Reddit. A snitch who waited years to tell same story as prosecutor whose book rehashes evidence ruled inadmissible. Yawn.
Sure. And, she may have a point there because Ken Kratz, who prosecuted this, he was the prosecutor in Calumet County, brought into Manitowoc County because of the conflict, wrote a book, and he came to Rockford a few months back, talking about his book, about the case. Evans could have gotten a hold of Kratz's book and made this whole thing up. I don't know, but I don't think that I should have waited around, or anybody for that matter should wait around to see if that's the case. That's a story in itself if he did that.
No, I mean, at this point, I think for the people who are kind of naysayers about even discussing the letter, I mean, the letter is a fact. Frankly, I'm usually of the mind that if you really want to get to the truth of something, more information is better than less information. Right. The letter does exist. But if these people are right, and that somehow Evans was put up to this by Kratz or put up to it by somebody else, I think that would bear out probably in visitor logs or some other means of information. And then imagine how bad that looks.
Sure.
So,
but I mean, to me, some of the obvious is usually right. Did Ken Kratz, visit this guy and feed him a bunch of information to sell books? It's silly to me. Now, I'm sure there's probably a possibility that happened, but what does Ken Kratz have to lose in this? I mean,
confirmation.
he's already been branded as a bad guy throughout the after the case. I think it was either after making a murderer, or right around the time, he was tweeting with a person involved in a case he was prosecuting. I think he may have been having an affair with this girl. He admitted to being addicted to painkillers, and so he's branded a bumbling idiot. So he has a black mark against him anyway.
Kratz?
Yeah, Kratz. But that doesn't mean he wasn't a competent prosecutor. He convicted Avery and Dassey on very little physical evidence other than this confession, because there was a lot of evidence in this case against Avery, a mountain of it. A lot of it circumstantial, though. I truly believe that without Brendan Dassey's confession, I don't think any of this would really be as airtight as it is, as far as keeping those guys in jail. Anyway, getting back to
Reddit.
Reddit.
Well, I mean, but that Nexius
Sure.
commenter on Reddit, he was kind enough to post the transcribed version of the letter, plain text, and his comment was, "Makes me wonder if this is the beginnings of Kratz's PR blitz for his book due out in a few weeks."
Well, that's conspiracy theory to me.
I don't know. No, I don't know.
A PR blitz. So he's
I
going
don't
to
know
use
if he'd be so interested in selling a book as much as being proven clearly right.
Well, I mean, he would have to have some sort of neurotic bent to really care that much about this at this point, because he
cared enough to write a book. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, he cared enough to write a book.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I think Ken Kratz is a shady guy. I mean, based on what they portrayed him as. I don't know the guy. Based on his past, I think he got in some trouble as a lawyer, did some things he probably shouldn't have done, from what I understand. The drug addiction, the text relationship he had with this, I think, defendant of some sort. I don't know. Anyway, he did some things as a lawyer that he shouldn't have done, and he was slapped on the wrist for that. But his involvement, to me, is completely irrelevant at this point now. The way social media continues to blow up at this case and completely misunderstand why things are being reported the way they are. That's to me the real.
Yeah, and Nexius later goes after you. He says that your publication, your website, has been around for 6 years and has only 200 followers on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I would point out that you have about 1,500 Facebook likes.
Sure.
So, and Twitter is just not your main means of communication.
Well, social media in itself has never been.
No, really, you want to drive the traffic is to the website, and that's not why you release this letter. I mean, this letter comes to you; it's via another source. I don't know how to tell people this. I mean, you can like it or you can not like it, but there's a letter that appears to be credible as far as the provenance of the letter,
right,
and the content aside. I don't think that's on you for reporting it.
Well, I don't know how it could be. I didn't make any claims about Stephen Avery, about Joseph.
Southpaw 72 stepped up for you. He pointed out that you weren't reporting an opinion. You were just reporting that the letter existed.
Well, again, Stephen Avery could be guilty. He had every
opportunity. I mean, this could be the most crackpot letter on the face of the earth, but Avery may still be guilty. This guy, who knows? I mean...
I can say this, and I had this conversation this morning with another reporter, that I have tried to follow up on a lot of these Cracker Barrel type of conspiracy theorists. Again, that the bones they found on Avery's property were actually taken from a crematorium. They replaced Teresa Halbach's body with a known drug overdose victim who died in an apartment building downtown Manitowoc around the same time Teresa Halbach died. Just wild stuff.
Now, I will say this: the key thing is weird. How do you not find a key in plain sight?
Well, I don't know if it was in plain sight. I don't know if it was in plain sight. I don't know what the extent of the first couple searches were. Now, the officer claims, I don't know if you saw that in the documentary. He claims that he was, shaking a bookcase around and it popped out somewhere.
Key?
The key.
Okay.
And it wasn't there. Apparently, they didn't see it there until they were wrestling around with this bookcase or this desk type of credenza type of piece of furniture. They didn't physically see the key go flying out of this piece of furniture, but they noticed it after they were wrestling this thing around. So that is a plausible way that the key could have gotten there. And it's also very plausible that could have gotten on the bookcase or the dresser or the nightstand, whatever it is, from Avery throwing his shirt onto that to that item. So these are very plausible situations. These aren't outlandish things. The only outlandish stuff that's coming from this case are all these theories of police corruption and Ken Kratz is involved in this. They go even way back to the original defendants in the civil suit. The original prosecutor in 1980, whatever it was that prosecuted Avery, he was involved in something. The guy that Mr. Zipperer, who was somebody that Teresa Halbach had an appointment with, his son killed her. That's another one of these things. I followed up on all of this stuff, and all of it's been debunked. And I have some theories who, if it wasn't Avery, killed Teresa Halbach. But I have not been able to actually prove any of that. And I would never name that. And Kathleen Zellner says it's very obvious who killed Teresa Halbach, and it's not Avery.
All right. Well, you and I can discuss that another time. Flyaway Girl 82 points out, when you wait years to squeal like a pig, there's a motive for doing so.
Really?
I see some merit to that argument. Why?
Well, tell me
why
the
does
merit.
Evans wait? Well, why does Evans wait?
I don't know why he waits.
Why not? I don't know.
I mean, I guess part of this is getting into the mind of a convicted murderer. And
Which probably none of us can do unless we have convicted murderers watching.
I mean,
the show,
I guess
and
I
doubt
understand
Let
that-
you have this media.
I've always thought,
Unless you're out. Maybe you're out.
I've always thought, people get mad and kill each other. That happens. I don't know if this guy was a psychopath. He got into a domestic dispute with his wife and killed her. That happens a lot, and a lot of these people who do this regret it. Guy like Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, he just had a bent for killing people. And so getting into the mind of that guy was probably a little different than getting to the head of somebody who got into a domestic dispute with his wife and a bad marriage, and she gets shot or thrown down a flight of stairs, which you see all the time. So is this guy a career sick, emotionally damaged person, and or is he just somebody who made a mistake? I don't know.
That's true. If we're to believe his own letter, what he said about at least the portion where he talked about his situation, he did call to seek medical help for his wife.
And he could have made this whole thing up. I don't know.
We don't know.
Anyway,
All right.
continue.
All right. Some people nitpicked at the details. Kind of, Evans got this little fact wrong. I'm going to say this. Having deposed lots of people now in cases, civil cases, not criminal cases, but same thing applies, I think, people will get facts wrong. They are on point. They're not trying to lie. They're not trying to recast things. They just either mishear something, they misremember something. I've had people I've seen kind of on both sides of the table that will remember. You think, how do you not remember that? I mean, it's such a central fact. And they screw up a date, or and then when you remind them of the correct date, they're like, oh, that's right, yeah. I mean, and sometimes they're off even by a year or 2 years.
Sure.
And, as time passes, I think, it's kind of, there's a distortion, or you have to really think hard to dial in. The only thing I will say is Evans probably had more time to do this than a person normally has when they're under questioning. So you'd think he might have taken the time to make sure he had the dates right and the facts right. But other things, I mean, maybe he misheard something Avery said. I've had people, that you talk about the layout of a room, and they'll say something was on the left, and it's, I'm basically saying, well, wait, I've been in that room. Are you sure you don't mean the right? And then they think about it, and they diagram it, and then they're, oh, yeah, you're right. That it was on the right, not on the left. So I think people can get some little facts wrong, yet still there's nothing nefarious about it. They're just, frankly, it's the human mind.
Right. And Evans, if he's telling the truth, which, well, if he's telling the truth about the story, that's one thing. But one thing that I do know is that he's had 6 years to think about this. He met Stephen Avery in 2010 and befriended him over time, and there was 4 years of conversation there between those two guys. I know that happened, and I'm sure there's going to be people say, including Stephen Avery, that it never happened. I never knew the guy, but there are people that can verify that these guys were in the same jail together and they knew each other. So he didn't just have a passing conversation with Stephen Avery, and Avery said, "Hey, I killed Teresa Halbach, by the way." No, this was a 4-year relationship that he had with this guy. Now, WTVO, I think, quoted me as saying it was
The local ABC affiliate.
Is that Evans was a cellmate. I have no proof of that whatsoever because, I don't know that. I don't know that they shared a cell, but they had a friendship that lasted 4 years.
All right.
So continue.
I thought the point that Zellner had predicted the snitch tactic, I thought that was interesting. That's the voice of experience there.
Well, she had this happen in the Ryan Ferguson case.
And
And Ferguson was exonerated, by the way. And Avery might get off. I'm not saying he's guilty. Or I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying he's innocent.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. I thought Probert 282's point that I guarantee the first argument about the snitch credibility is, quote, but he has nothing to gain by coming forward, so he must be telling the truth.
Well, that's fallacy.
Well, yeah, I think you that's in the universe of things to consider, but yeah, we talked yesterday. I just, I don't know. I don't think that completely rings the bell. So then going the other direction.
Oh, here we go. What's that?
Going the other direction. We had the folks Spur_7. Whoa. The statement seemed a whole lot more believable than the article implied it would. It was a tough read.
The letter.
Yeah, the letter itself. Yeah.
A tough read meaning it was detailed, or
yeah, I'm guessing that person means the level of detail and graphicness of the description of what happened.
Now Zellner actually made a comment. Did you read that where some of the stuff that Evans talks about was inadmissible?
Yeah, she
Which
referred to
means
that
nothing.
in the tweet.
It means nothing.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mean they're not actual facts.
Right.
It just means a jury never got to hear them. And I think that's an interesting and kind of troubling distinction about American law. I mean, that there can be actual facts that are provable facts, but that for various reasons don't get to the jury.
Right, and if someone outside of the jury box sits in a murder trial, they can actually get more details than the jury does. I mean, I just the Todd Smith case was a very good example of that. The jury wasn't around when, well, they're never around when these in limine motions are argued. They're always usually argued away from the jury, but it doesn't mean that the evidence is not there. It's just damning to one side, and they don't want it. They don't want the jury to see it.
Right, and they've used a legal argument
so
to have
for a typical defense lawyer's comment, well, it's inadmissible. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. And so I think it's very important for some of the folks on either end of this to understand that Avery did, God forbid, have opportunity to do this. And the cops had opportunity to frame him. Could have been one guy who didn't like Stephen Avery that said, I'm going to cross a T instead of dot an I here, knowing that it's going to be bad for the guy just because I don't like him. I think there was a case like that in Avery's life where he ran somebody off the road. I think it was his cousin or something like that. Do you remember
She was the one married to the sheriff.
She's married to a sheriff
right?
who didn't like the guy, and they made sure he paid for that. Those types of things happen because it's human beings interacting with one another.
We have some folks that believe the letter or feel the letter was believable and credible. We have Kiel9 points out that the doc didn't cover documentary. I assume this person means Making a Murderer. Didn't cover a lot of what was in this letter. If the info didn't come from SA, so state's attorney, I'll take that.
Oh, Steve Avery.
Oh, Stephen Avery.
In Reddit, you're not supposed to use personal names or names in Reddit.
Gotcha.
String.
I'm not a huge
threads.
Reddit person.
Yeah, I'm not either.
All right.
But it's a hotbed of.
Then Evans or someone else had to have had access to the trial transcripts at least.
No.
So this person's pointing out that Evans wouldn't have had access to this information. I mean, plus Evans, it sounds like there's general doubt that Evans would ever even have been able to see the documentary because he's been locked up and you don't get Netflix in prison.
I wouldn't think they would, and I wouldn't think he would have any access to trial transcripts, not this one, at a law library of any sort. Could he have had access to Kratz's book? Maybe. I don't know.
No. So assuming that, and I mean this makes the assumption that
or
the facts that were articulated are actual facts, not fabrications.
Could have come from Avery.
Well, and that's that person's point.
You know, and from what I understand about Avery, he's not the pillar of society in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. He's not the pillar of higher education. He's a guy who maybe known for bloviating things that aren't true like this to make himself look a little, tougher than he is.
We move on. We've got the specificity. People talk about the specificity of the letter, which to me tends to favor the letter being believable
Okay.
and the letter being true. I don't know that a liar would, unless they're just some sort of sociopath, would go out on a limb to fabricate facts that basically are subject to being true or false. Why add extra facts?
Right. And would a sociopath even do this?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Are they prone to
Yeah, I don't know.
writing?
Not an expert on
things like
sociopaths.
this? Yeah, right.
I didn't go to psychiatrist school, but if I had to guess, I'd say, yeah, certain categories of sociopaths would do something like this. But anyway, so I just thought some of the follow-up from the folks on Reddit was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of my first
So what's your
foray
take
into
on
Reddit.
this?
My take on it? I believe the letter came from Evans. I believe Avery told him some things, and I believe that he has released the letter. He sent the letter because he believes it'll have an effect on Dassey's situation.
No, we can talk about that too. I mean, I'm
Well, I know there's much more to say about that.
well,
That's
I'm
just
not,
my guess.
Well, no, but Dassey obviously is not a convict technically right now. But I would have to say if this was used, this could be used against Dassey. I mean, he participated in a homicide. He may not have killed her, but he participated. He could be at least an accessory of some sort.
Well, I didn't say he was right about,
Well, no.
about whether it would help Dassey's situation.
I don't know how-
or what the
I
effect
guess-
on
I guess
Dassey's
my-
situation would be. I think he thinks he's helping Dassey.
But I don't know how anything can help Dassey there. I mean, Dassey walked into this and had sex with a dead girl. If this is true,
Yeah, but he didn't
and
murder.
then he cleaned up he hid the body and burned it. I mean,
So that would make him an accessory after the fact.
would
I'm
have
not a
to-
criminal attorney, but that would, I mean, everything he did was after the murder. If you take Evans' version is true, right?
yeah. So I mean,
Evans' version of Avery's version.
now could Dassey get convicted of homicide or even a rape based on information that's in this letter? I don't know. There would have to be a case against him with other evidence supporting this kind of theory. But this theory is the same theory that existed in 2005. I mean, this is not new stuff. So I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, well, that's true. I don't know. If Evans really wanted to help Dassey, he could have omitted the substantial details about Dassey's involvement. Just left it at basically everything Avery did.
Right.
So,
Well, I guess I have a hard time believing or a hard time processing how the same story that Dassey told is going to help him. Because Dassey never said. I think Dassey one time said he stabbed Teresa Halbach in the stomach or something like that. But Dassey told police and told everybody that Avery is the one who killed her. And when police were questioning him, they got him to admit things by saying, they used the technique. I'm not going to accuse the Reed School of anything right now, but I
I think we should talk to the people from the Reed School. I think that's an interesting topic.
But they completely led him to admit to being involved in this, being used in this, is what the police said. But Dassey goes back to Avery shot her. Yeah, I stabbed her once, but I think he said, no, I didn't stab her. But he fingers Avery as the guy who killed Teresa Halbach. But, of course, according to Wisconsin law, he's a murderer, too. And I think Illinois has the same sort of laws as well. And based on what I've seen, he's going to jail anyway. I mean, this isn't going to help Dassey. It's the same story Dassey told the cops in 2006.
I didn't say Evans was right about whether it would help Dassey.
So for the folks out there that think I'm on this Stephen Avery did it train or kick. No, I have a theory. If Avery didn't do it, I have some people in mind that could have.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, that sounds like a topic for a whole nother show. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for part 2 of episode 2 of Rockford Advocate Case Reports.